Guess what? I got a fever.
You give me fever, fever in the morning, a fever all through the night.
Give me that year, and you're going to be a first round pick.
John,
yeah, go ahead.
We've mentioned, some fun guys today. Bowman, Spencer Rattler. We've made fun of Kalen Laybourne, and his story of the 5-star. Zamir White, even, top 2 running back recruit, 2 knees later, he's a straight line runner who needs, with no wiggle and no receiving game, who needs Josh Jacobs to hold out of camp to have right. So like class clowns and, asterisk on this because I usually love the class clowns.
Yeah.
So this is not a bad thing, but what other name am I going to use for this, corny section of the show? Who are a few players who you're fading, or guys who are slipping in Devy rankings, or guys who are like, don't believe the hype? The funk is fake on these guys. For me, from a guys who have fallen and I'm wondering about them perspective, not necessarily that I'm fading them, but it goes to show you how quickly this stuff changes. 2025 running backs like Jam Miller, Petaway, Omarion Hampton, Trevante Citizen 1 knee later. And now, I can't find them in anybody's Devy rankings, and I was excited to have them. So, who are some guys who are kind of slipping for you or that you're fading?
Get out on Quinn Ewers now. This is alert. This is a red alert. If you have Quinn Ewers, get rid of Quinn Ewers now. Trade him for anything. There is way too much risk with Quinn Ewers. And I liked Quinn Ewers last year as a college fantasy football asset with Sharks offense. Sharks been very good at quarterback development. He's had success. They have talent at the wide receiver position. And this is the eyeball test. Quinn Ewers failed. I know he got injured. And stop talking about 1/2 against Alabama. I don't care. Anyone, what is it? My dad used to say, even a blind squirrel finds a nut in a while.
Mm-hmm.
He had one good half. He hasn't been good since sophomore year of high school.
What's the problem with his game? Why is it not translating on the big stage?
I think his anticipatory skills are poor. I think he's inaccurate, and I think he has happy feet in the pocket. The one thing, is funny. My friend mentioned this more than my best friend. He's a Jet fan. And we had this deep conversation about Zach Wilson. You know what he said about Zach Wilson? I said, what my friend said to me, he goes, John, he doesn't like to get hit. If you play quarterback in the NFL, you have to enjoy being hit. It's a manly thing to get hit. Watch Eli Manning in the NFC Championship game against San Francisco 49ers. I don't think I've ever seen a guy take a beating like he did. Watch how many times Joe Montana got hit. I mean, hit. Zach Wilson doesn't like to be hit. I don't think Quinn Ewers likes to be hit. If you're going to play, I know people don't like it. This is a physical, violent game. If you are playing quarterback, you have got to be hit. And the first thing everyone says in the huddle, if you don't like to be hit as a quarterback, teammates ain't going to rally around you, brother. I'm telling you right now, I don't think Quinn Ewers likes to be hit. I think you have to be willing to get punched in the mouth as a quarterback. And that, whatever you want to say about Eli Manning, everyone, that guy was one tough SOB. What did he play? 156 straight starts or some crazy number like that? Look you don't start a quarterback 155 straight games at the NFL level and win 2 Super Bowls if you aren't one tough SOB. And how many of us have seen Tom Brady get whacked? He might get up and yell at his lineman. He might be pissed. But do you ever see Tom Brady? He just gets up and keeps competing. And I think that is such an it's like something we don't want to talk about. This is a violent game. This is 300-pound men trying to take your head off. Who run a 4.5? Any idea what it would be like to get hit by Willie Anderson of Alabama last year? Any idea?
Well, sometimes when I jump off the train platform and jump in front of a train, that's maybe that's.
But I don't think Quinn Ewers likes to be hit.
You can tell some guys the clock in their head.
Oh, yes.
They feel it. They feel it even faster than they should. You know what I mean?
I was watching Dan Fouts versus Joe Montana in 1982. Some of the hits that Fouts and Montana took, the defenders would be ejected from the league right now. But those two guys just stood in there and they got smacked. But I don't think Quinn Ewers likes to. Make a long story short, he doesn't have that intangible. I'm going to sit in here and I'm going to get hit. Because once your teammates, especially the offensive linemen, once an offensive lineman knows you're going to take the hit, guess what? They'll do anything to get you, to not let you get hit again. I just don't see the NFL toughness in him at this point.
Well, I'm going to maybe try to. I think I have a couple shares. I might try to move him tonight.
I would move because I don't even think he's a first-round pick next year. But that's a whole nother story. I think he's going to have a hard time what to make his decision because they're going to want to play Arch Manning. I think they have a unwritten agreement that Arch Manning's the quarterback in 2024. Manning's not going to sit for 2 years. No way.
So Ewers, I forget his eligibility. So because he had that weird he's technically a sophomore now, but he's in his third year or some shit like that.
Yeah, so he could go to the NFL.
Yeah. Jesse, anybody slipping and fading or guys you're wondering about that might be somebody you've heard bad buzz about?
I don't really have my finger on the pulse enough to really know, what the market's doing. I just kind of, I have my few Devy leagues, but go ahead.
I'll tell you 2 wide receivers I'd be willing to flip right now. Mm-hmm. Xavier Worthy and Barian Brown. They're 163 and 166.
Yeah.
I know they're good, and they have a role in the NFL as slot receivers, but their ceilings are capped. I don't picture them being a 1,400-yard receiver at the NFL level.
If Worthy didn't have what we think was the hand injury or whatever last year and performed better, are we having a different conversation? Because I'm with you as far as just you look at the data, the hit rate on guys that small. But for example, with Troy Franklin, he was 170, but you liked his length and his savvy, so it can be done. So why not Worthy? I guess is the question.
Well, because I think what I'm trying to get to your listeners is he's worth a lot right now. You can flip him at his ceiling.
Yeah.
Worthy is on. I think he's basically a first-round pick in Devy leagues. If I remember, and I'm not going to bank on a player who's 163. I'm just not going to do it. It might work, and I think he's a great college wide receiver. Now the hands are a different thing. He did drop some balls, and Quinn Ewers, I think, missed them a few times. But at the NFL level, 163, is there anyone I can even comp him to at the NFL level as far as weight?
I mean, how slim is Slim Reaper, Jesse?
170. He's not 6 foot, so
he looks bigger. He holds his weight better, right?
I mean, not if you look at his lower legs. I mean, his
legs are so skinny. You're right about that.
But when you talk about culture, he's part of that Alabama culture. He kind of set a new bar in the wide receiver room when he showed up in the Eagles. It's hard to do in an NFL room.
I had Devonta Smith there. I think I had him as my third wide receiver because I do think he was different than the norm, if that makes any sense. I was willing to bank on him, and I saw his toughness. I thought he was tough as nails at Alabama. What?
You know what? I'm sorry. Sorry to interrupt you, but when did you start talking about Trey Benson? Because I think I have him on my roster because of you.
Oh, I think probably the first time I mentioned him, it must have been around June or something when Matt and I've been talking about Trey Benson for a couple, because I'm a Norvell guy. I believe in Norvell and his offense. So I've been talking about him for a while.
So it was really, I was debating him or younger ATN, Travis.
You mentioned I was going to bring up one guy who I liked, and you talked about. I like Trevor Etienne a lot.
Who would you take between those two?
Trey Benson, last time to the NFL. When I have two running backs who are about in the same tier, I'm minimizing the risk, and that means less games to get whacked. So I'll take Trey Benson. I'm not talking about a schism. I think I have Trevor Etienne at number 11 or 12, and I have Trey Benson at like number 7 or 8. There's not a big, now if you're talking about the guy who's number like Singleton versus Devin Neal, I'm taking Singleton, right? Like, even though I love Devin Neal, Singleton, even if it's 2-year wait, Singleton's a better prospect. But there's a gully between those two as prospects. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Sure.
All things equal, I'm going to go to the guy who's fit quickest to the NFL level.
Gotcha.
So
I think you were my type.
Oh, you're right. So here he is, Devonta Smith, 6'0", 170. So that's why Troy Franklin, I think, he's right. 170 is about the lowest I want to go.
Barry Brown, 166, but listed as 6'1", whatever. 10 for what? I mean, it's box score, right? But 10 for 145 and a TD against Georgia, best defense in the country.
Yeah.
Gets Riley Leonard this year, who's getting some Daniel Jones comps, obviously because of the helmet or whatever, but is an intriguing, I think, 2024 sleeper-ish quarterback. Probably, I don't know, is he an upgrade over Will Levis as a college quarterback?
He's actually getting Devin Larry.
That's right. Oh, wait, where's Riley Leonard? Duke.
Riley Leonard's at Duke.
I had the blue and white in my head. I was like, wait, hold on a second. Okay, yeah. He's getting Devin Leary, who we kind of liked in a high-powered NC State offense, but doesn't seem to have clicked with him, right?
No, and he got injured. When did he get? Maybe he got injured preseason or first game last year. He was in my Devy. I think I had him. There's another guy, right? Talk about DJU and Spencer Rattler. I had Larry in my top 12 Devy prospects last year. Now I think he's in my top 25. He's still on my radar, but he has to show me something. Barry Brown is going to be peppered at Kentucky. That's not the question. We're going to look at his model of production, and it's going to be impressive because he played right away. He's in the SEC, and he's going to get the numbers. But I'm not banking on a 6'1", 166-pound wide receiver. Who's the Giants' Kentucky wide receiver that everyone has? Wandell Robinson. But I thought I don't have any shares in a dynasty league of Wandell Robinson. I just thought he was too small.
I have a few. I was kind of fading him and Calvin Austin, kind of similar size, drafted the same year.
Love Cal. I don't have. Can't take Calvin Austin.
I saw some flashes from Wandell, and I'm hopeful because of the dearth of wide receiver talent there.
Be out of the 7 slot receivers the Giants brought in.
We'll see.
Yeah, I just realized Jamison Crowder. I was like, I made a joke the other day about, the Giants will probably sign Jamison Crowder next. He's actually on their list.
Yeah, he's actually on their list.
I don't know is it more Colts tight ends or Giants slot receivers? I think they each have about I counted 9 Colts tight ends the other day, literally 9 that are still on the roster somehow, but.
My boy Will Mallory is going to be the star of both groups.
I just looked at you ever go back in early drafts? So I was looking at my Scott Fishbowl draft. I have Jelani Woods on it as my 3rd tight end. I think I took him in round 21. Another out of those 9 tight ends, I'm hoping Jelani Woods.
Round 21, swing for the fences.
That's Brian. That's Brian's guy.
Oh, I love Jelani Woods.
I love the talent. Oh my God, he was so good at Virginia. Oh, he was really good. He's so athletic.
Tracking student progress, John. Who are some guys with a lot to prove or a lot to lose in 2023? Or is there a guy who you've had your eye on in spring ball that's going one way or the other that is notable?
So my guy who I think has a lot of proof, but I still like him, and I think he's very underrated, Will Shipley of Clemson. I seem to be higher on him than consensus in the community. I have him at my number 5 running back in Devy right now. 5'11", 200. Dabo's been pretty good at looking and finding running backs, all the way from C.J. Spiller, remember? I mean, he had that one great season. Don't really know what, but it fell apart. But he got to the NFL. We do have ETN. I think Will Shipley's super talented. 2 years, he's got 54 receptions since as he was a true freshman. 5-star recruit. I like 200. Now, let's hope he shows up. I had the same concern with Jahmyr Gibbs last year. Jahmyr Gibbs, he was 191. Let's hope that, when Shipley goes to the combine, he's 205, 210 maybe. Who knows what the exact weight is. There's always that X factor. Clemson's offensive line was terrible last year, folks. It was as bad as it could. I think they were ranked outside the top 100 in offensive lines. Will Shipley, there are plays where you see him get blown up. When the running back gets the ball and the defender's he might as well just give the quarterback should give the defender the ball. Will Shipley gets blown up. Now, there's 2 things that can happen. You can get some bad traits, right? Because the running back has to make things happen and you don't necessarily. But this happened with Cam Akers coming out of Florida State. Cam Akers' offensive line was so bad at Florida State. It was awful.
I remember that, yeah.
Oh, awful. Now, forget about the injury, and we've seen some really good highlights out of Cam Akers. I think he was a 2nd-round pick. Maybe
he was.
Okay. Shipley, man, if you watch Shipley film, you've got to understand how bad Clemson's offensive line was. And they had no passing game last year. DJU just throwing the ball straight into the ground. I think Shipley this year, if he has a season I project, he's going to end up with 100 career receptions, 40 career touchdowns, over 3,500 yards rushing, and a 5-star recruit. And he's from Clemson. The NFL is going to like him. I like Will Shipley a ton. He's got a lot of proof, but I have him at number 5 because I believe in him and that he can run between the tackles and to the outside. And here's something that, when I get running backs, I like running backs who add adversity. I like running backs in bad offensive lines. Teaches you how to be a better running back.
Tank Bigsby, baby.
That's, I could be wrong on that's part of it with Tank, right?
Yeah.
You had Auburn's offensive line was a disaster last year, right? That's what I think one of the things, and I've learned this from, and I like Wisconsin backs, but there's more failures. Jonathan Taylor and Melvin Gordon are very good NFL runners. But there's a lot of Monty Balls, Corey Clements, a lot of, right? Because that offensive line in Wisconsin just gives you wide open running lanes, right? Where you got these young men who play behind bad offensive lines. They really get good at running. So I think it's Will Shipley. And I'm going to give you a quarterback because we haven't mentioned quarterbacks. It's Bo Nix. Forget about what happened to Auburn, folks.
He's a thing this year. People are like, he's competing for quarterback 3 in the class like anybody else, right?
I have him ranked ahead of Quinn Ewers. 6'3", 214, NFL size, 10,800 career passing yards already, 1,379 rushing yards, 101 career touchdowns, 45 games played. I'll say this. Where I missed on Brock Purdy, I thought Brock Purdy had skills, but I will say one thing. I think he could digest the NFL game plan so fast because he had so much experience at the college level. He's obviously smart. So many, you just said you were watching the Johnny Manziel. I watched that too. Johnny Manziel didn't know how to read a playbook, didn't look at film. Brock Purdy does. And Bo Nix, I think he can too. You're going to have 55 career starts over. And you got to put aside the Auburn years. He was at Auburn when it was as bad as it's gotten in the last 2 decades. The program fell apart. He was great at Oregon last year. You're going to look at him, and the NFL is going to like him. I think he's the guy. He's got a lot to prove. Right now, if you ask me who's the third quarterback in the class, I think it's Bo Nix, not Quinn Ewers. But I'm so tired of everyone just going on, it's Quinn Ewers. It's Quinn. Do some research, folks. Stop parroting everyone else who's just making a statement without watching any film.
So is there anybody who, say, like, has stood out in spring ball that kind of, I don't know, want to say came out of nowhere, but like, you know, kind of, I mean, like, for example, you know, we don't like freshmen, but like Carnell Tate, right? He got the black stripe off, like, really cool. Right. And we love that corny shit, right? But I like him as a prospect. Is there anybody in spring ball where you were like, oh, okay. I mean, you know, it's only spring ball, but like, you know, it's meaningful in the cycle, the rhythm of the college football year.
Oh, absolutely. I'll tell you the guy I missed on. If we had this conversation in March, I never would have said this name. I wasn't even drafting him in my early CFF best ball leagues. It's Chase McClellan out of Alabama. All the drum beat. Listen to the drum beat out of Alabama. Same drum beat. They're going to run the football. 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 They don't have a quarterback. When was the last time we went all the way to, August 16th? And we don't have a starter, a quarterback for the University of Alabama? So what are you going to do? Run the football, run the football, run the football. Chase McClellan, 5'11", 212, 6.2 yards per carry. He was a 4-star recruit. He's the guy. He's Saban's guy. He didn't bring in anyone. Ironically, Saban brought in Gibbs last year. He didn't bring in anyone this year. And they were going to throw the football last year with Bryce Young. This year, they're going to run. Ty Simpson? Tyler Buckner out of Notre Dame? What are we talking about here?
Jalen Milroe also in the
mix. Jalen Milroe?
Right? Yeah.
They're going to run the ball. McClellan might have 1,500 yards.
Ty Simpson, 5-star prospect, though. Is there anybody you're putting your chips in on among those three as far as like an NFL upside guy there?
So it's funny. The reports, and these are just tweets, reports, what you can take them what they're worth. Buckner doesn't even know the playbook yet, which I don't understand. That's a whole different story. Milroe can't throw the ball.
Yeah,
it's probably going to be, by process of elimination, Ty Simpson.
Yeah.
Like, I have not heard Saban publicly state one. It's not like he's come out and said, Ty Simpson is going to lead Alabama, like he's our guy. None of that.
Oh, back to Shipley. Clemson's getting a new OC this year, right?
Yes. Garrett Riley from TCU, and look at what he did with Kendra Miller.
Okay. Something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I like Shipley.
So, John, divergent thinkers is our next corny teacher category. So I love those students, you know, and I'm like, tell me how you, and they're like, I did this, and that, and they did it like out of order, creative way, like, you know, just not what we expected. Is there any guys who like don't fit like the traditional boxes? Like, we've talked about size, we've talked about pedigree, we've talked about culture, but like, who are guys that are still on your radar, that are, you know, guys to watch that you're like, you know, this guy may have X, but I'm still in on him because of something else.
I'm going to tell you a guy and I don't think he's getting enough discussion. Tatoria McMillan out of Arizona. He was supposed to go to Oregon. I guess Arizona flipped him at the last second, whatever that means. You know, I'm not like the biggest high school recruit, but he ends up at Arizona. He's 6'5", 205. 6'5" is right on the board. You don't want the 6'6", 6'7", right? Those young men don't tend to make it at the NFL level. The body just doesn't work. 205. And here's the thing. He's not lumbering. He's got good feet, folks. He had, as a true freshman, 39 receptions. He averaged 18 yards a catch as a true freshman. Get over how he looks. He's more athletic than you think, and I like his feet. I think he's got a little bit of Drake London in him. I don't think he's as tough as Drake London. Drake London was very underrated. He was a tough wide receiver, especially in the middle of the field when he played slot when Amon-Ra St. Brown was there. I think that's one of the reasons why he was a first-round pick. He excelled inside and outside. T-Mac is really good, but he doesn't fit in our modern game. He doesn't fit the 5'11", 188-pound wide receiver who gets wide open. He's an X receiver, a classic X receiver.
And there's a place for that, especially
without question.
When we think about how there's like a shift back to like power run game and things like that, you know,
Yes.
so they're gonna have to mix it in the size and stuff like that. All right, John, extra credit section of the show. Just any sleepers or deep cuts that we haven't talked about, like that people should look for, especially like when you're in a Devy startup or a supplemental, when you've got like, you know, a lot of picks and you're like, I don't know, it's like the 7th round of my supplemental, or you know, am I taking, you know, like Jaden Rashada or something like that? You know?
Well, let's talk about tight ends. We haven't mentioned any. If you're late in draft, I think the Devy community is starting to shy away from the tight ends. So you might get here's the thing. When people run away, value opens up. Brock Bowers, everyone knows. We're not going to talk about him. I think Jatavian Sanders of Texas is really interesting. If you're in the 5th round of a Devy draft and Jatavian Sanders is on the board, I'm taking him. 6'4", 241, 5-star recruit. Athletic is all heck. I might
say good luck.
Why? What do you mean?
Finding him there, I would guess. Oh,
okay. I mean, okay. So you don't think he's lasting that long, even?
No, I don't.
Okay. Let me see that. Let's bank on some systems. Benjamin Yorsek, Stanford, 6'2", 242, 4-star recruit. Stanford historically has been very good. Zach Ertz. There's a bunch of guys who get drafted and play in the NFL level. I wish I could remember all their names, but I can't. Another interesting name, Brent Keithy, Utah. You know, he was starting before Dalton Kincaid.
And he got injured, and Dalton Kincaid
injured in the 4th game of the season.
Wally Pitt sort of thing going on.
Yes. Brent Keithy is 6'2", 222. He's kind of your Utah H-back movie tight end. His numbers, check this out, 148 career receptions. Very interesting prospect. Now, the kid who might blow I'm not as high on him. Some people really like him. Oh, no, never mind. Theo Johnson, isn't he at Jacksonville now?
No, Brent Strange is at Jacksonville.
Theo Johnson.
I think Theo's still in college.
Yes. I was thinking Brent Strange, sorry. Theo Johnson, Penn State, 6'6", 256. We know a couple things about Penn State athletes. Whoever's doing their strength and conditioning, they're out of control. When they go to the combine, the Penn State athletes at the skill positions, from Saquon Barkley to Mike Gesicki, all these, they do, Jahan Dotson, all their wide receivers, they do very well at the combine. All reports, and you look at athletic scores for Theo Johnson, he might break the bank at the combine athletically. If you're going to we were talking about Jelani Woods a little earlier, if you're looking for a guy who just is so athletically gifted, Theo Johnson is your guy.
Is Deuce Robinson going to play wide receiver or tight end by the time he gets to the NFL?
I think wide receiver, but I could, it depends on the way. It's hard.
Is it a business decision these days?
It is.
Because Dalton Kincaid is a big slot, but he's going to get paid like a tight end as long as he's got that TE next to him.
I know. I think if you want to have a better opportunity to make it, I think the tight end's the better way. But you're not going to get paid as much.
Right. Okay. John, we love you, but one more thing.
Okay.
We cannot depart without talking about Maction. Can you just tell folks who may not know what Maction is, why they need to, in the middle of the week, care about Ohio versus Kent State. Like, please.
There is nothing better. So Maction first, let's say Maction started is they obviously wanted television network coverage. So the MAC conference, they played their games on Tuesday and Wednesday evenings because ESPN is going to show Kent State versus Bowling Green.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there is nothing better than in early November turning your television on to Kent State versus Bowling Green and seeing a 38-33 game. They're defensively challenged, but they were way ahead of the curve as far as throwing the football. I think I was watching Ben Roethlisberger at Miami of Ohio was playing in the MAC back then. I'm pretty sure they were in the MAC. I might have the conference wrong, but I'm pretty sure he was playing in the MAC back then too. The MAC is just skill position players who might not be NFL prospects, but they could be late day 3 guys, special teamers. The coaching staff is going to throw the football for the most part, but then you get some runners. You get 1 or 2 teams who always have a good running back who can just bowl. Last year was Carson Steele at Ball State. Nothing like watching a MAC running back who's just physically bigger than like Carson Steele was so much fun last year because he just dominated the defensive linebackers and defensive backs at that level. But I love Maction. If you just want to see offensive football and enjoy a game, it is unbelievable, the Maction. I love it. Now, last year, we actually took a step back from offensive production. So I'm hoping that we get a little bit more offensive going again this year. But, man, before last year, it was just 15 years of goodness in the MAC.
So here's my pitch for you, John, since you're the ambassador of college fantasy football. One thing that I've thought about, a running back yardage in the MAC counts in my college fantasy team the same way the yardage for Alabama versus LSU does. And to me, the discrepancy between that level of game is not the same as when, for example, the Buccaneers are going to play the Cardinals this year, as opposed to the, Bills and Chiefs. The gap just isn't as big. It almost seems unfair to that the wide receiver 2 on Toledo, right, is going to get 145 yards, and that counts that week as much as somebody else in in a P5. Is that just you just got to put up with it, or is there a way to weight the system a little bit or something?
So I've never weighed. I think to me the fun of the college game is it's forcing me to understand that from a production standpoint, that there are receivers at Kent State who can do as well as a receiver at North Carolina. Does North Carolina have better opponents, tougher opponents? Yes. But I want to watch a Maction game on a Tuesday night and have my quarterback in the game. I want a Maction quarterback with 36 touchdown passes. It is fun as hell. It is enjoyable. And you really get to know the player pool. I mean, I started a lot of this with my draft profiles on footballdiehards.com. And one of the things that college fantasy football forced me to do was I needed to know I think it was 126 Division I teams. It was different. Forced me to know all the teams, which forces you to know the entire player pool. By December, there is probably not a name of a prospect that I don't know. Doesn't mean I broke down the film yet. Doesn't mean that I know everything about the player, but I know the player's name, and I can probably give you a pretty good idea of their production model.
So I love it. The answer to this question might be just follow John on Twitter. Read his stuff on Fantrax, or read his stuff on Die Hard. Shout out Bob Harris. But I'm a new player to Devy, C2C, college fantasy, whatever. And say, I kind of like college ball. I watch a little bit on Saturdays. I know a thing or two about a thing or two, but I'm intimidated by 133 teams, not even counting FCS. what are some corners that people can cut, you know, to tap into things? And is it just simple as just, you know, listen to what John says?
No, first, what I would do is know the difference between the Power 5 and the G5. And I bet you most of your listeners already know the Power 5 schools. Mm-hmm. That is the ACC, the Big 10, the Big 12, the SEC, and the soon-to-be-gone Pac-12. But I bet you all of our listeners know those programs by now. Mm-hmm. So what you've already got half the player pool. You're pretty familiar with the teams. Then it is getting to know the G5. When I started playing, I literally would watch college football on a Saturday with a magazine. It used to be, I always had the Lindy's. And if it was, who's in the MAC? I would just turn to the MAC conference in my magazine and, okay, these are the MAC. And I just learned, right? You begin to learn who's in the conference. So like, if you wanted to really do this well this year, make an effort to say, you know what? I'm going to know the American Athletic Conference in the Sun Belt. I'm going to know them by the time kickoff comes. I'm going to know all. Maybe there's 22 teams.
Shout out Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, Jesse.
I love. You know how bad I would love to have a Chanticleers uniform. That's such a great color. Well, I love that.
You can just grow a mullet.
Oh no, I just family of 3, teacher salary. I just need to go. But you know what I mean, right?
Mm-hmm. It doesn't sound like. I thought Grayson McCall was going to transfer out and become something. It doesn't seem like that's going to happen.
Isn't that is one of the weirder stories? That why did he not end up at a Power 5? Because he's done everything he can, and his coach left. So there's really not a reason to not go unless I got to be logical, right? No one wanted him.
Or he likes the beach. Coastal is very close to Myrtle Beach.
There's lots of colleges on beaches. Maybe I'm not the smartest guy, but I think there's a lot of schools that have so I'm just, he goes down my Devy rankings because it is shocking that a Power 5 program that needs help at the quarterback position. Look at TCU. I guess they do where he could have gone to places that needed a quarterback and he didn't. And that's
Slovis keeps getting jobs, right?
Yeah, slowly from USC.
How do we separate the guys for example, on a video with Matt, you said it kind of says something about Roschon. He could have transferred and he didn't. It says something about his character, right?
Yeah, that said a lot to me.
How do we separate guys like that from this guy didn't transfer? It must mean nobody wants him. Well, because
there's the difference between Power 5 and G5. Texas is a Power 5 program with Sarkisian, who's a great coach, right? Mm-hmm. Coastal Carolina, look at Grayson McCall. That team could finish 5-6 without their coach. I've seen these types of programs completely fall apart when they have a very good coach leave the program. The amount of risk that he's embracing by returning to Coastal Carolina, if you're looking at an NFL career, that risk is incredibly high right now. If he goes, let's just make it up. He goes to Alabama and he starts, everything's different. Everything's different. But obviously Alabama, he wasn't getting that type of opportunity. So I think there's too much risk to stay at the G5 level.
If I was going to give a couple tips to folks who are just getting into it or are intimidated by it, obviously follow good content like John and stuff like that. Also, take baby steps, take small slices. I'm in my first college fantasy only football league this year, right? It's best ball, right?
Perfect.
That's what I can handle now, right? And maybe next year things like that. One of my first C2Cs that I'm still in is P5 only best ball on the college side. Keep it easy on you, and then figure out the rest later. So there's ways to kind of dabble into it. So I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
All right, let me say one thing. I'll piggyback off that.
Yeah.
The best ball is great because not only will you learn your roster, and then you'll do a little research before you have your draft, right? But then you'll see, no matter where you finish, if you win or lose, look at other rosters. Let's say you finish in 5th place. Well, what did the first place roster do? How did that owner put together their team? Go over your draft. Where did I make mistakes? Did I not get enough running backs? Did I get too many and it'll teach you. Just 1 year of best ball will teach you so much. And that's great because you don't have to do waiver wire and you don't have to make lineup decisions. Or the other suggestion, get into a Power 5 league only. You don't have to play with the 130. Get into Power 5 only. That's 56 to 60 teams. I forget exactly. Depends if you add Notre Dame, you could do that. But then get in that, and the player pool isn't as large. The waiver wire isn't as intimidating. But then, and all those games are televised. I mean,
and you don't get seduced by Demario Douglas, right? Is
that, hey, it's funny. I saw Demario Douglas play live at UConn last year. Yeah, he's a nice player. I feel like Belichick likes him. I do. I just feel like it's the Belichick guy.
They're saying he's pretty much like the starting slot there. So, all right, folks, before John gives us the tension, another teacher joke, we're gonna let him go play with his Huskies. Zeus,
Mora, and Luna. We got 3.
Okay. All right. So I spared you singing the James Madison fight song because I spent a semester at JMU and I was about to sing it. I spared you the Rick and Morty story about J. Michael Sturdivant, which I can maybe tell another time. Otherwise, this maybe would have gone even longer. So, John, as I said, one of the first things that people should do if they're getting into this stuff is to consume your content. So please tell us where folks can find you and your work.
Thanks. First, let me thank you for having me on. I just had a blast tonight. It's so incredible to talk football, and we're only less than 2 weeks away. But all my Devy and all my college fantasy football information is up on Fantrax. And right now, Fantrax is the only platform that you can play college fantasy football. Unless I know there's some people might still do spreadsheets, but I'm way past that. Let the computer do it for me. So you can go to Fantrax. All my college fantasy football, my player rankings, my player profiles, my projections. You can see over 100 player profiles. And I think I have almost 300 players ranked on Fantrax. So you can go there and see all of that. Plus, we have a mock draft, the summa cum laude draft, everything that you need to get started. Go for it. Now, in the spring, I do my NFL draft profiles. I've done it for 10 years on footballdiehards.com. And the rookie big board, I think you mentioned Matt Hicks you had on earlier. Him and I do the rookie big board draft seminar. Next year will be our 5th year doing the video series. And it'll be my 11th year doing the prospect series, the written profiles for the footballdiehards.com.
And where can folks find you on Elon's Plaything?
Gridiron Skull 91. I don't know what's going to happen on that. I'm debating where I should go next. But yes, Gridiron Skull 91 on X, I guess the Plaything he calls it.
Yeah.
I still call it Twitter myself.
Oh no, I'm going to be one of the last people to ever change over to calling it X, just for so many reasons. Jesse, tell us about War Games and where people can find you and all that jazz.
Yeah, so Dynasty War Games on the Dynasty Warzone network. We record on Sundays, we come out on Mondays. Right now it's audio only, but we are getting our YouTube game back together. Myself, Chad Mendoza, Austin Bell. We play games. We have a good time. This week we did a little deserted island. We figured out who the very best Dynasty assets over the last 2 seasons were. And then, who all kind of are subservient to those men. But I want to really thank you, John, for coming on. I really appreciate meeting you and getting to talk to you. You're such a wealth of information. I wonder, hopefully, possibly you might consider coming on War Games sometime. So I don't know.
You hit me up.
Right on. I don't know if you're familiar with us. Like I said, we're on the Dynasty Warzone network, Memphis Young, if you're familiar with him at all. But yeah, I'm Jesse _DWZ.
You remember your Twitter handle
on the tweeters, and maybe I'll make it the same thing when we all migrate to Blue Sky.
Hey, it'll be my pleasure.
But yeah, John, I am going to hit you up, and I'm going to hold you to that. Maybe just have you on, play a couple games, talk a little Devy, talk a little Dynasty. It would be amazing.
Look forward to it, my friend, very much.
Right on.
Okay, you can find me FFJunkie_ on the Twitter. You can follow this show at Dynasty Fever Pod on Twitter. You can find me on Saturday nights, Dynasty Saturday Night 5, live on the Going for Two Live YouTube channel with Josh Walker. This week we're going to do Risers. Next week we have a special guest. Rankings and articles on goingfor2.com. I'm going to doing a major shakeup to the rankings and tiers, so keep an eye out for that. Please subscribe, rate, and review. Show us how much you love us. We need to climb the charts in other countries besides Iceland. Please go check out our YouTube channel. We put the clips up there, and we're going to be putting some videos up there soon. So please go show the YouTube channel some love. John, speaking of love, we love you. Thanks so much for coming on. And that's a wrap, folks. Thanks for listening.
See you.